Good morning to viewers here in the U.S. and around the world. It is Wednesday, February 16th, and I'm Brianna Keilar with John Berman. And just moments ago, NATO's Secretary General issued a chilling update on the crisis in Ukraine, declaring that Russia has the capability to launch a full-fledged invasion without warning. He says we have not seen any de-escalation on the ground. On the contrary, it appears that Russia continues the military buildup. Today is officially a day of unity in Ukraine, so declared by Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, even as his nation is facing the threat of a possible invasion. President Biden urging Russian President Vladimir Putin not to give up on diplomacy and taking the unusual step of appealing directly to the Russian people.
We're not targeting the people of Russia. We do not seek to destabilize Russia. To the citizens,
where we have seen buildup on what has been really a third front around Ukraine over the course of the past few weeks. Satellite imagery showing us that just across this water here, the Sea of Azov, there are Russian strike fighters that are ready to go. More of that imagery showing that some 60 helicopters have been flown into Crimea over the course of the past few days. Meanwhile, this Russian Ministry of Defense video showing that they are pulling back troops from Crimea. It says that they are loading onto trains along with tanks and artillery and heading back across what's known as the Kerch Strait onto the Russian mainland. We should note, John, that even as those troops, if those troops are being withdrawn from Crimea, that there are still going to be
covering Russia's looming threat. Okay, first off, Julia, just give us a sense of where you see these latest moves affecting things. Where is the trajectory of war? Are we moving towards it or away from it?
I think we're kind of running in place. As Alex pointed out, and as many other people have pointed out, the troops that are being moved, if they are being moved, are the ones that are most easily redeployable, and the ones that are still within striking distance of Kiev are still in place. Also, what does it mean to withdraw some troops? You could withdraw 10,000, 20,000 troops and still have, over 100,000 troops, pressing on Ukraine. I think this is just a way to kind of get back at the U.S. for the informational kind of campaign that Washington is waging, which is saying Russia's about to invade, Russia's about to invade, Russia's about to start a war. And this is basically Putin countering and saying, we're trying to start a war? What are you talking about? We have nothing to do with this. We're just having military exercises. We're actually moving some away. We're all about diplomacy. And I think this is really about wresting back control of the narrative and of, who can be the most unpredictable actor in this conflict, which Putin loves to be.
It is interesting that you say that Putin's trying to wrest back the narrative, which implies, and you write about in Puck, that Biden has effectively driven this narrative, you say. And you write a line here which really jumped out to me. You said, the Biden strategy is starting to look like a pretty good one. What's better than tricking the guy who threatened war into threatening peace? First of all, that's very elegant writing. Second, I do think that it describes a situation where, look, every day there's diplomacy, every day there's running in place is a day where Russian troops aren't crossing the border again.
That's right. I mean, the Biden White House doesn't have that many options, right? It's actually a pretty weak hand that they're playing pretty deftly, right? Biden has said all along, no American troops are going to be involved. So that's off the table, even though it's not off the table for Russia. Sanctions are on. So what the Biden administration is left with is, basically informational warfare and unmasking Russian plans before the Russians can implement them and taking away the element of surprise. And I think it's working pretty well, and it's buying a lot of time for this diplomatic process to continue, which is ostensibly what Moscow wants, what it says it wants. And I think they kind of do want the diplomatic process. They think, it's interesting when you hear, the establishment in Washington talk about, tensions have never been higher since the Cold War, as if that's a bad thing. We see the Cold War as a bad thing, and it's a good thing it's over. Whereas in Russia, they see the Cold War as a good thing, as a place we should return to, because Russia was one of two superpowers counterbalancing the U.S., throwing sand in its gears, having to be dealt with, having to be consulted with, having to be asked for permission. So they're trying to get back to a place of the Cold War in Europe, where the two main guarantors are just the U.S. and diplomatic maneuvering and a new security agreement in Europe, which is what Russia says it wants. And this is buying
Ukraine. Russia still gets something out of this. And you're kind of seeing this stress test that Ukraine has not obviously fully passed, some of the cracks being revealed. Julia, really appreciate you being with us this morning. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Brianna.
Let's bring in CNN senior political correspondent Abby Phillip to talk about this. Okay, so look, I know we're not at the end of this, so you can't really make a judgment about how the Biden administration is doing because it's not over. But right now, I mean, you heard what Julia said there about trying to take the narrative away from Putin, that he's effectively done that. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think she characterized it pretty well, which is that the United States is actually not in a great position right now. There's not a whole lot that they are willing to do to truly stop war. And so what they do have at their disposal, which is the bully pulpit, the Biden administration is using from the very beginning, going back as far as November. They have been very out front about what Putin is doing, how he's trying to maybe trick the global stage into thinking that this war would be justified by launching a disinformation campaign. They've talked about a potential that Putin would try to put a puppet government into Ukraine. These are all attempting to make what Putin is at this point likely to do unacceptable on the global stage. It won't prevent Putin necessarily from going there if he so chooses, but it makes the consequences of it beyond just
to the Russian people. I wonder how much that got through, but also tell us about the calculus.
This would be some sort of, patriotic mission, that if there are deaths, which there would likely be in the event of an invasion, that would be justified. And what Biden tried to do is say, no, when body bags are coming back to Moscow, that's going to be because Putin chose war. And I do think that's very significant for Russians to hear in the context of a regime that is authoritarian. And I do think it's important for the world to hear that, Russians are not alone. Russians who may oppose what Putin wants to do are not alone, that the global stage is with them too. And